Alright, so the biggest thing about this episode is that Sarah is now back in the mix. And after Kenny found her, although he knew she tried to kill Ethan, he also finds out about the most shocking thing she did to him, which was leaving the door open at the hospital and getting his father killed. But of course, we'll talk about all of that during the recap, so let's get started. So the episode begins with a flashback during the early days when Kenny and his family still all lived together before his dad was sent to live at the hospital. We find out that Kenny and his mother really had no choice. The previous night, the monsters were knocking at the door, and his father thought it was his brothers outside. And he pushed Kenny's mom in the process of trying to open the door. And since they didn't want to take that risk again, they had to send his ass away. Kenny decides to take a breather outside because, of course, it's hard to do something like this to your own father, even if it feels like the right thing to do. During this time, Boyd walks up and offers some advice to Kenny. But ultimately, this flashback moment is because this is when Kenny is first offered the job of deputy. Back in the current day, we see Kenny running through the town to alert Boyd that Sarah has returned. Then we jump to the Matthews, where we see Tabitha telling Julie that she has seen the little dirty children again. Afterwards, Jade barges through the door on the Matthews, but hold on. It's actually Jade's place this time, so it actually makes sense. And he's not happy to find out that the Matthews are now staying at Kenny's place as well. Leave it up to Jade to complain about others staying over when it's not even his house. But we still love Jade. Over at the church, Kenny leads Boyd back to Sarah, where Boyd tells him that he needs a moment alone with her. He proceeds to ask her about where she's been, and she reveals to him that she followed him through the tree like she said and ended up in the basement of the church. Then she asked Boyd where he went, but he avoids the question. Then he asked her how did she know about the faraway tree, and she tells Boyd that the boy in white told her, and how he also told her that Nathan was right about this place being angry now, which we all know. She tells Boyd that the boy in white is different from the other voices that she hears, and that she thinks the boy in white is trapped there like the rest of them and wants to help, but he's just not sure how. Then Boyd and Sarah continue to discuss what happens to her now that she's back, because we all know that Sarah has done a lot of crazy shit. In season 1 of my recaps, we used to call her Crazy Sarah, or Ding Dong Sarah. I mean, she killed Toby, she killed Kenny's dad, and she killed her brother while trying to kill Ethan. So yeah, the bitch is crazy. And Boyd hasn't even told Kenny about how Sarah is responsible for his father's death. Upstairs, Boyd tries to convince Kenny that Sarah is special and how they should spare her. But understandably, Kenny is like, hell with all that, she needs to go in the box. Because at this time, Kenny only knows that Sarah has killed one person for sure, and that she tried to kill Ethan. But Boyd snaps and tells Kenny that no one else is going in the box. And in this moment, Boyd gets a little dizzy and stumbles out the front door of the church because the parasites/worms seem to be slowly making him weaker. Over at Colony House, Julie takes Ethan to see Victor so he can apologize for raiding his room with Jade. On the way inside, Julie gives Elgin a look like chocolate is her favorite flavor. And she also finds out that Fatima, I gotta make sure I say Fatima, because people are getting on me for saying Fatima, which I just do that because I'm lazy, guys. I don't feel like doing the Fatima, you know, but fuck it. But anyway, she also finds out that Fatima and Ellis are going to get married in the town, and she's asked to be one of her bridesmaids. In this moment, Julie asked Fatima about Elgin, and she tells Julie that he's been having a hard time getting acclimated. So surprisingly, Julie offers to go talk to him. Upstairs, Ethan tries to apologize, but Victor isn't trying to hear it. At this time, Victor is drawing the things that he and Tabitha saw in the monster tunnels, and little Ethan tries to upgrade his apology by showing Victor his gift of some color markers. And we all know that Victor will come around eventually because he can't resist a gift like that. Outside Colony House, Julie makes her move on Elgin, and she tells him that she's around if he ever needs to talk. And we know what that means. Over at the hospital, Christy checks out Boyd since he got a bit lightheaded earlier, and he tells her about the spider bites, which Christy tells him they look fine. Then she asked about the cut, and Boyd lies and tells her that he scratched it on a tree branch. He also told Christy about his father's Parkinson's and how that messed with his mind before he died, and he wanted to know if that had any effect on him. And she tells him that it's nothing to worry about until much later. Boyd continues to try to hide his new condition and attempts to stand, but then he just falls back on the bed. Then we jump over to the diner where we can see Kenny grabbing some food for Boyd, but of course that food is actually for Sarah. And during this time, his mom asked if he's okay since Christy's fiance is back, and he gives a grade A simp response by saying he just wants her to be happy. Jesus Christ, Kenny. Over at the bar, Jade meets Bacta and finds out that Elgin tried to get her to turn around, and he reveals to her that it was already too late since they had already seen the tree in the road. Bacta begins to express to Jade how she feels guilty for getting the passengers stuck there, but Jade is like, it's not your fault, and now can you please shut up? And in a very Jade-like fashion, he cracks a joke and tries to cheer Bacta up by telling her the passengers were on a bus, so their lives couldn't have been that great to begin with. And he succeeded, because Bacta and I both got a pretty good laugh out of that, because I thought that was pretty funny. But Jade is always pretty funny. In this moment, we find out that Bacta was driving buses so she could pay off her tuition, and that she was going to put her notice in to quit sooner, but she stuck around to earn a little extra cash for a vacation to celebrate. She also reveals to Jade how she wasn't supposed to even be driving the day they ended up in the town. Jade tells her about how he sold his company before he arrived, and how that's what he's been working towards his whole life, and he proceeds to make a toast with her to getting what they deserve. Back at the hospital, Tabitha meets Marielle while looking for Jim, and Marielle tells her that he just left. Then she finally catches up with him over at the diner as he stares over at the new people who arrived on the bus. Jim reveals to Tabitha that he began pondering on why they arrived again while trapped underneath the rubble. He finally tells her about the man on the radio and how he thinks everything is just one big experiment, and how he thinks they're also being watched. Tabitha also asked him if anyone else heard the voice on the radio, and in this scene he doesn't respond to her, but of course we already know that Donna also heard the voice. Jim also talks about how their house collapsed right after the man on the radio said that Tabitha shouldn't be digging the hole. And I like the way he talks about it in this scene, because it almost sounds like he thinks that maybe those who are watching pushed a button or something that triggered the house collapsing, because I like to hear the characters in the show theorize about what they think is happening the same way we do while watching it. Those moments are great, and I think that's one of the reasons why it hurts so bad when the characters don't respond the way that we know that they should when other things happen, like sharing information about the faraway trees amongst each other, not talking about the voice on the radio, Tabitha and Victor not telling others about the monster tunnels and what they saw, or even Boyd not questioning Martin more after he left the well. And it kind of makes the characters only seem smart when it doesn't risk too much being revealed in the show. And I have to admit that I feel like character encounters like those should be better written. But please don't get it twisted, people. I still love this show, and I'm not going anywhere unless it gets canceled, or maybe if Boyd dies. Yeah, Boyd does. I don't know, I might jump ship. But I can still critique the things that I think can be improved about the show. And everything I've pointed out, I'm sure anyone can find a way to justify the characters not making better decisions. But to me personally, no show is perfect, and I don't mind pointing out the flaws in this one. But there's my weekly rant. Now back to the recap. Over at the sheriff's office, Boyd sees an old friend who's not really there because of those damn parasites still fucking with his brain. And he reveals how his hands aren't shaking anymore, but there's worms inside of him now. Father Khatri tells Boyd that he shouldn't say anything to Kenny about how Sarah is responsible for his father's death, and how keeping that information to himself would be a much wiser decision to serve the greater good of getting everyone home. But Boyd refuses to keep the truth from Kenny. So while Boyd happens to be seeing shit because of the parasites in his system, Father Khatri is once again providing him counsel. But this time he's acting more of a visual subconscious mind to Boyd, because he's dead, and that's also what's happening in the scene. Back at Colony House, Jim confronts Donna about hearing the voice on the radio, but she tells him that it's a bad idea to tell everyone about what they heard, because that would put all of them in danger, and she thinks that they should wait until they know more. And she tells Jim that maybe he should think, because maybe the voice wasn't even human, and maybe it was one of the monsters, which we all have theorized in the past. And honestly, I'm kind of split on this decision, because I understand to keep people safe, maybe everyone shouldn't know about it, but at the same time, this one goes into that no one shares information with each other aspect of the show that no one really likes. And I personally think this situation should be handled differently than this, but maybe tell the foundational members of the town and let them converse amongst each other while still keeping the peace, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think? In the other side of Colony House, Randall is finding out the way things work there, because remember, at Colony House, they share everything. But honestly, I don't think this rule should apply to the passengers who are staying there at the moment, because they didn't go through the ceremony to choose Colony House, so it's really not their fault for not understanding the way things work there. Kind of like it's been with everything else since they've been there. It hasn't really been their fault. You can't really expect someone to move in and just automatically know that you're going to go through their shit, so I have to side with Randall on this one. Over at the church, Kenny gathers more insight about what happened in the woods with Boyd and Sarah, and he tries to understand why Sarah did the things she did, so he can have Boyd's back when everyone else questions his leadership for wanting to spare her. But eventually Sarah tells him the truth about his father, and of course all that trying to understand shit just goes out the window, because that's your daddy. I mean, come on, even if your dad was a piece of shit, you would still want to hurt someone if they were responsible for his death. At least I feel like this is true for most people anyway. Back at Colony House, Fatima tries to approach Donna about maybe taking a different approach with Randall and allowing him to not share his things. But Donna doesn't want to ease up on the rules, and instead she finds a different solution. She takes Randall out to the charter bus so he can now live there. And she also gives him the talisman from the Matthews house and explains how it needs to be hanging up at the window, and tells him that if it's on the ground, it's just a regular rock. And I don't know why I'm just now thinking about this, but I'm like, it's going to be hot as hell on that bus, and I'm the type of person that doesn't enjoy sleeping when it's warm. It has to be cool or either cold for me to sleep well. And I'm just thinking that if Randall decides to crack a window or some shit and forgets to close it once it's nighttime, I wonder if he'll be okay. I mean, could you imagine baking in that bitch all day and then finally trying to get that cool afternoon breeze just to wake up in the middle of the night and find out the monsters are chewing on your balls? But see, I still don't know if the place you're inside of has to be completely sealed for the talismans to work. I mean, when Boyd first found the talismans, it was just a wall of vines that kept him protected. And when he used the talismans in the tent, there were cuts inside the tent from when it was being dragged, but it still kept him safe. I mean, yeah, there's the things out in the woods that are worse and blah blah blah, but the talismans still worked against the monsters we know that come from the woods. So all I'm saying is maybe Randall can get away with cracking a window or something. Maybe. Back in front of the church, Boyd meets Tilly, and we don't learn much about her in this moment, but we do know that she seems to be a glass half full kind of person. And in later episodes, you guys will kind of find out why she's this way. Just because someone isn't immediately panicking when they get to the town doesn't make them a mole, people. People handle things differently. Yeah, it's a little weird that she doesn't seem as worried as everyone else. Maybe Tilly just sees the situation differently. Maybe she's just not afraid. Maybe Tilly is just built different. There's other possibilities is all I'm trying to say. You know, someone doesn't have to immediately be a mole because their reaction is different. I'm just saying it's worth looking at the situation a different way, but who knows? Maybe she is a mole. But at the end of the day, none of us really know. Maybe there is a mole, maybe there isn't a mole. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. Over at the hospital, Boyd finds Kenny staring at the spot where his father was found slaughtered. Kenny confronts Boyd about the fact that he knew and didn't say anything. And the episode ends with Kenny dropping the deputy badge on the floor and him telling Boyd to watch his own damn six. So yeah, you can't really blame Kenny for the way he feels. I think anyone in their right mind would feel that way. But yeah, the last few episodes have mainly just been more character development happening, and I think we get a little bit more excitement in episode 5, like we learn more about Victor through Jade. We get to see how Randall's first night goes in the bus, and the dirty bald-headed children return. But all the real excitement is coming in episode 6. So you guys need to get ready to strap yourselves in for that one. But that's all I have for now, and I'll catch you guys next week on the next recap. Until then, thank you guys for watching.